You might be getting high blood pressure readings that are actually false because of how you sit, what you are wearing, or even what you did 5 minutes before sitting down. These errors can lead to unnecessary medication changes, extra doctor visits, and a great deal of unneeded worry for you and your family. I'm Dr. Ben Harris, and today I will show you the 11 most common mistakes seniors make when measuring blood pressure at home. The third mistake on our list is something almost everyone does, and fixing it can drop your reading by 10 points instantly. One mistake many people make is placing the blood pressure cuff over their clothing instead of on bare skin. This is an easy error to fall into, especially in the winter months when we are wearing sweaters or long-sleeved shirts. Having a layer of fabric between your arm and the blood pressure cuff can interfere with the sensors and add extra thickness that the machine has to squeeze through. This often results in a reading that is significantly higher than your actual blood pressure. Before we go further, please comment your age and your usual top number range. Knowing where you stand helps me understand what you are managing. Arthur came to see me because he was terrified. He was 74 years old and had always managed his health carefully. Suddenly, his morning readings jumped from 132 to 155. He hadn't changed his diet, and he was still taking his walks. When I asked him to show me how he took his reading, he sat down and wrapped the cuff over his thick flannel shirt. He told me he didn't want to get cold in his drafty morning kitchen. I asked him to roll up his sleeve and try again on his bare skin. His reading immediately dropped back down to 134. He was relieved to find out his heart was fine. It was just the fabric of his shirt causing the false spike. The blood pressure cuff works by sensing the vibration of your blood moving through your artery. When a layer of clothing is in the way, it muffles those vibrations and forces the machine to inflate tighter to find the pulse. This creates an inaccurate measurement. To do this correctly, always slide your arm out of your sleeve or wear a short-sleeved shirt. Do not simply push a tight sleeve up your arm, as the bunched-up fabric can act like a tourniquet and also ruin the reading. Keeping the skin clear ensures the cuff can hear your blood flow perfectly. This supports steadier readings and prevents false alarms. 2. Another very common mistake is using a blood pressure cuff that is the wrong size for your arm. Many seniors use the cuff that came in the box without checking if it actually fits their limb. If a cuff is too small, it will give a reading that is too high. If the cuff is too large, it will give a reading that is too low. For many older adults who have lost some muscle mass, or conversely, for those who carry a bit more weight in their upper arms, the standard cuff might not be the right choice. Margaret was 68 and had been told she had low blood pressure for years. She often felt a bit dizzy, but her home machine always showed 110/70. When she brought her machine to the clinic, I noticed the cuff was wrapping around her arm nearly twice. Margaret had very slender arms, and the adult large cuff she was using was far too big for her. We switched her to a small-sized cuff, and her real reading was actually 138/85. She wasn't dealing with low blood pressure. She was dealing with an improperly sized tool. Once we got the right size, we were able to adjust her routine properly. The physics of a blood pressure cuff require it to cover about 80% of the circumference of your upper arm. If it doesn't wrap around enough or wraps around too much, the pressure isn't distributed evenly. You can find your size by using a simple measuring tape around the middle of your upper arm. Most cuffs will list the centimeter range they are designed for right on the fabric. If you use insulin or glucose-lowering medication, check readings because changes in food or activity can affect blood sugar, which in turn affects your circulation. Make sure your cuff fits snugly but comfortably. This ensures the machine is calibrated to your specific body. 3. Failing to support your back and your feet is a mistake that happens in almost every household. We often take our blood pressure while sitting on the edge of a bed, on a soft sofa, or even standing up at the kitchen counter. When your back is not supported and your feet are dangling or crossed, your muscles are working to keep you upright. This muscle tension sends a signal to your heart to pump a little harder, which raises your blood pressure by several points. Harold was 80 years old and liked to take his blood pressure while sitting on his favorite recliner. However, he would sit on the very edge of the seat to reach the table where the machine sat. His feet wouldn't quite touch the floor and his back was hunched over. He couldn't understand why his readings were always in the 140s at home, but lower at the doctor's office. I explained that his body was under physical stress, just trying to stay balanced on the edge of that chair. I had him move to a sturdy kitchen chair with a straight back and place his feet flat on the floor. Within minutes, his reading dropped by 12 points. To get an accurate number, you must sit in a chair with a firm backrest. Your feet should be flat on the ground, not crossed at the ankles or knees. Crossing your legs can increase the top number of your blood pressure by 2 to 8 points. Sit quietly for a few minutes in this position before pressing the start button. If you have any one-sided weakness or difficulty sitting upright, ensure you are in a safe, stable chair to prevent falls. This simple change in posture creates a neutral state for your circulatory system. If you are finding these tips helpful, please subscribe for more simple blood pressure and blood sugar tips. 4. Having a full bladder is a hidden mistake that many seniors overlook. This is particularly common in the morning when people want to take their reading as soon as they wake up. A full bladder puts pressure on the body and triggers the fight or flight nervous system. This internal stress can raise your blood pressure reading by 10 to 15 points. Robert was 72 and very disciplined about his health. He wanted his true morning reading, so he would roll out of bed and head straight for the blood pressure monitor before doing anything else. He noticed his numbers were consistently high, around 150/90. He felt fine, but the numbers worried him. I suggested a simple change. Go to the bathroom first, then sit quietly for 5 minutes before taking the measurement. Once Robert started emptying his bladder before the test, his numbers settled into the 130s. He realized that his body was simply reacting to the discomfort of a full bladder. Always make sure you have used the bathroom before you sit down to track your numbers. Even if you don't feel a strong urge, a partially full bladder can still influence your nervous system. This is a very simple, same-day lever that can provide a more accurate picture of your heart health. For those of you managing blood sugar, remember that high glucose levels can cause you to need the bathroom more often, so timing your measurements after a bathroom break is even more important. This keeps your internal environment calm for the test. 5. Many seniors do not allow for a proper rest period before they hit the start button. Life is busy, even in retirement. You might have just finished washing the dishes, walking the dog, or even just finished a phone call that was a bit stressful. If you sit down and immediately start the machine, you are capturing your activity blood pressure, not your resting blood pressure. Elaine was 65 and always felt rushed. She would come home from grocery shopping, set the bags on the counter, and immediately take her blood pressure because she wanted to get it over with. Her readings were always high, and she was worried she needed more medication. I told her that her heart was still doing the work of the grocery shopping for several minutes after she stopped moving. I asked her to sit in her chair, put her phone away, and just breathe quietly for 5 full minutes before taking the reading. When she did this, her numbers were perfectly normal. The gold standard for home measurement is to sit in total silence and stillness for at least 5 minutes. Do not watch television, do not read the newspaper, and do not check your messages. Just sit and exist. This allows your heart rate to slow down and your blood vessels to relax. If you find it hard to sit still, try focusing on your breath, inhaling for a count of 4 and exhaling for a count of 4. This supports a calm reading and reflects your true baseline. 6. The position of your arm during the measurement is vital. A very common mistake is letting the arm hang down by the side or holding it up too high. If your arm is lower than the level of your heart, the reading will be falsely high. If it is higher than your heart, the reading will be falsely low. Gravity plays a major role in how much pressure is required to move blood through your arm. James was 77 and usually took his reading at the dining table. However, the table was quite low, and he would let his arm rest in his lap while the cuff inflated. He was seeing numbers in the 160s, which led his doctor to increase his medication. One day, he felt very dizzy when standing up. We realized that by resting his arm in his lap, he was getting a falsely high reading and was actually being over-medicated. We taught him to rest his arm on the table at chest height, using a small pillow to prop it up so it was level with his heart. His real blood pressure was much lower than he thought. To do this correctly, find a table or surface that allows your mid-arm to be at the same level as your breastbone. You should not have to hold your arm up with your muscles, as that tension will raise the reading. Use a cushion or a folded towel if the table is too low. Your arm should be relaxed and supported. This ensures that gravity is not working against the accuracy of your machine. This is one of the most important steps for getting a consistent number every day. 7. Many people make the mistake of talking or listening to someone while the machine is working. It might seem harmless to answer a quick question from a spouse or listen to the morning news, but the act of processing speech or speaking yourself requires brain activity and slight muscle movements in the throat and chest. This can bump your reading up by 10 points. Jim was 77 and a very social man. He and his wife always had their morning coffee together, and he would take his blood pressure while they chatted about their plans for the day. He noticed his numbers were always higher than when the nurse took them at the clinic. I asked him if he talked during the measurement, and he said, "Of course, I'm not going to ignore my wife for 3 minutes." I suggested they play a game where they both stay silent until the machine finishes. When Jim stopped talking during the reading, his numbers dropped into the healthy range. He hadn't realized how much a simple conversation was stimulating his circulation. During the entire process, both the 5-minute rest and the actual measurement, you should remain completely silent. This includes internal talking, like ruminating on a stressful task or worrying about a high number. If someone enters the room, signal them to wait. If you have a cough or need to sneeze, wait until it passes and restart your rest period. Maintaining silence ensures your body stays in a truly restful state. This supports the most reliable data for your health records. 8. The timing of your measurement in relation to your meals and caffeine intake is a frequent source of error. Many seniors enjoy a cup of coffee or tea first thing in the morning. Caffeine is a stimulant that constricts blood vessels and can cause a temporary but sharp spike in blood pressure. Similarly, eating a large meal redirects blood flow to the digestive system, which can change your readings for up to an hour afterward. Clara was 71 and loved her morning routine. She would have a large cup of black coffee and a piece of toast, then immediately sit down to do her health checks. Her blood pressure was always high, and her blood sugar was often spiked as well. She was frustrated because she felt she was doing everything right. I explained that caffeine and the act of digestion were both working against her. I asked her to take her readings, either before her coffee or at least an hour after she finished her breakfast. By changing the timing, she finally saw the steady, lower numbers she had been working so hard to achieve. For the most accurate results, avoid caffeine, tobacco, and exercise for at least 30 minutes before taking a reading. It is often best to take your measurement first thing in the morning before eating or taking medications, and again in the evening before bed. If you are monitoring blood sugar, you know that food changes your internal chemistry quickly. The same is true for blood pressure. Consistently checking at the same times each day, away from stimulants, provides a clear picture of your long-term trends. This allows for better management without the noise of temporary spikes. 9. Relying on a single reading is a mistake that causes unnecessary anxiety. Blood pressure is not a static number. It fluctuates from minute to minute based on your breathing, your thoughts, and even the movement of the cuff itself. The first time the cuff inflates, it can sometimes startle the body, causing the first reading to be higher than subsequent ones. Arthur was 74 and would get very upset if he saw a high number. He would take one reading, see a 145, and immediately start worrying that he was having a health crisis. This worry would then cause his blood pressure to stay high for the rest of the day. I taught him the rule of 3. I asked him to take 3 readings, 1 minute apart, and ignore the first one. When Arthur started doing this, he noticed that his second and third readings were almost always much lower than the first. The first reading was just his body reacting to the cuff. The later readings were his true resting state. Most health organizations recommend taking 2 or 3 readings at each sitting. Wait about 1 minute between each one to allow the blood flow in your arm to return to normal. You can then average the last 2 readings to get your true number for the day. This method smooths out any temporary blips or startle responses from your nervous system. If you see a high number on the first try, do not panic. Simply breathe, wait, and try again. This helps you stay calm and prevents the spiral of anxiety-induced high readings. If you know someone over 50 who could benefit from this, share this video, and subscribe for more simple blood pressure and blood sugar tips. 10. Some seniors suffer from white coat syndrome even in their own homes. This is the anxiety that comes from the fear of seeing a high number. You might feel your heart start to race as soon as you reach for the machine. This anxiety creates the very high reading you are afraid of, creating a frustrating cycle of stress and high numbers. Linda was 66 and lived alone. She was very worried about her heart health and felt that her blood pressure machine was like a judge. Every morning, she would feel her chest tighten as she put on the cuff. Her readings were often in the 150s, but when she went to the pharmacy and used their machine while distracted, they were in the 120s. We realized that she was scaring her own blood pressure up. I suggested she stop looking at the screen while the machine was working and instead listen to a calming piece of music or look at a photo of her grandchildren. Once she removed the pressure of the performance, her home numbers began to match her pharmacy numbers. If you find yourself getting nervous, try to reframe the measurement as just gathering data, like checking the weather. It is not a grade on your health. It is just information to help you and your doctor make good decisions. If the process is very stressful, you might try taking your blood pressure every day for a week without recording it, just to get used to the sensation of the cuff. This desensitization can help your body stay relaxed. This supports a more peaceful routine and more accurate results. 11. Failing to keep a consistent log or only recording the good numbers is a final mistake to avoid. Some people feel discouraged by a high reading and decide not to write it down, thinking it was just a fluke. Others write their numbers on random scraps of paper that get lost. Without a clear, honest record, it is very difficult for your doctor to see the patterns that matter. Peter was 82 and a very proud man. He wanted to show me that he was doing well, so he only wrote down the days when his blood pressure was 120/80. He left out the days when he had salty soup for lunch and his numbers went up. This gave me a false impression of his health, and I was confused when he started showing signs of fluid retention. When he finally started being honest and recording every single reading, the highs and the lows, we were able to see that he was very sensitive to sodium. We adjusted his diet slightly, and his numbers became much more stable across the board. Keep a dedicated notebook or a digital log for your readings. Include the date, the time, and any notes about how you were feeling or what you ate. If you had a high reading, don't hide it. Write it down and note if you were stressed or had a late-night snack. This honesty is the best tool you have for managing both your blood pressure and your blood sugar. Over time, these patterns will show you. 12. A mistake that many people overlook is the temperature of the room where you are taking your blood pressure. When your body is cold, your blood vessels naturally constrict or tighten up to keep your internal organs warm. This narrowing of the vessels increases the pressure required to move blood through them. If you are sitting in a chilly room, your reading might be significantly higher than it would be in a comfortable environment. George was 79 years old and took great pride in his woodworking shop in the basement. He spent most of his mornings down there and decided that it was the most convenient place to keep his blood pressure monitor. However, the basement was always a bit drafty, and George often wore a heavy cardigan while he worked. He noticed that his readings in the basement were consistently 10 to 15 points higher than the readings he got at his doctor's office. He started to worry that his heart was failing. I suggested he bring the monitor upstairs to his warm living room and sit for 10 minutes before checking. Once he was in a room that was 72 degrees instead of 60 degrees, his numbers returned to a very healthy range. He realized that his basement shop was simply too cold for an accurate medical test. To ensure your numbers are correct, always take your blood pressure in a room that feels comfortably warm to you. If you feel even a slight chill or have goosebumps on your arms, wait until you have warmed up. You can wrap a blanket around your legs or shoulders while you rest for those 5 minutes, as long as the arm being tested remains free and relaxed. This keeps your vascular system from tightening up as a heat-saving response. This supports a much more natural and accurate baseline reading. 13. Another common error is not knowing which arm to use, or switching between arms without a plan. For many seniors, there is a slight difference in blood pressure between the left and right arms. This can be due to the way the arteries are branched off the heart, or even due to past injuries or surgeries. If you switch back and forth randomly, your log will look inconsistent and may cause your doctor to worry about fluctuations that aren't actually there. Nancy was 64 and had a habit of using whichever arm was more convenient at the moment. If her coffee was on the left, she used her right arm. If she was sitting near the lamp on her right, she used her left arm. When she showed me her log, the numbers were all over the place, jumping from 125 to 140 and back again. We spent a few minutes in the office testing both of her arms. We found that her right arm consistently measured about 6 points higher than her left. I instructed her to always use her right arm from then on, as that was her high arm and the one we wanted to monitor for safety. Once she stuck to one arm, her log became steady and easy to read. When you first start monitoring at home, you should take readings on both arms to see if there is a difference. Most experts suggest using the arm that gives the higher reading for all future measurements. Once you determine which arm that is, stick with it every single time. If you have had a mastectomy, a shunt, or a stroke that affected one side of your body, always consult your doctor about which arm is safe to use. Consistency in which arm you choose is key to seeing the true trends in your cardiovascular health. Before we move on, please comment your fasting sugar number and your age. Seeing how these two numbers interact is very helpful for our community of seniors. 14. Many people make the mistake of checking their phone or a tablet while the cuff is inflating. While you might be sitting still and staying silent, the mental stimulation of reading an email, looking at a news headline, or scrolling through social media can trigger a small spike in your blood pressure. This is a form of mental activity that prevents your body from reaching a true resting state. Susan was 70 years old and found the 2 minutes of waiting for the machine to be quite boring. To pass the time, she would scroll through her social media feed to see photos of her grandchildren. She thought this would help her relax, but sometimes she would see a news story that frustrated her or a post that made her feel a bit anxious. Her blood pressure readings were very erratic. I asked her to put the phone in another room while she took her reading. Without the digital distraction, Susan found that her mind was able to settle much more deeply. Her readings became more consistent and accurately reflected her calm, resting state. The goal of home monitoring is to capture your body at total rest. Even if the content you are looking at is pleasant, your brain is still processing light, color, and information. This processing requires a slight increase in blood flow and heart rate. For the most accurate reading, keep your eyes relaxed and fixed on a neutral point in the room, like a wall or a window. This allows your nervous system to fully power down for the duration of the test. This supports the most reliable data possible. 15. A mistake often seen in seniors with certain body types is improper cuff placement on the upper arm. The cuff should be placed so that the bottom edge is about 1 inch above the bend of your elbow. If the cuff is placed too high up toward the shoulder, or if it is angled incorrectly, the internal sensor will not be able to accurately detect the pulse in your brachial artery. Bill was 82 and had very large muscular upper arms from years of manual labor. Because his arms were shaped a certain way, the cuff would often slide up toward his armpit as it inflated. He was getting very strange readings, sometimes seeing numbers that were impossibly low. When he showed me how he was wrapping the cuff, I realized it was sitting far too high on his arm. We adjusted the placement and used a small piece of medical tape to help keep the cuff in the right spot before he started the machine. This small adjustment meant the sensor was finally aligned with his artery and his readings became accurate again. Most blood pressure cuffs have a mark, often an arrow or a line that says artery. This mark must be placed over the part of your arm where you can feel your pulse near the elbow. If you are unsure where that is, it is usually on the inner part of your arm, slightly toward the body. Taking the time to line up the cuff properly ensures that the machine doesn't have to guess where your heartbeat is. If you use insulin or glucose-lowering medication, check your readings because changes in food or activity can affect your circulation and how easily the cuff picks up your pulse. Proper alignment leads to more confident monitoring. 16. Many seniors do not realize how their blood sugar levels can interfere with their blood pressure readings. This is a very important interaction to understand. When your blood sugar is high, your blood becomes slightly thicker and can cause your blood vessels to be less flexible in the moment. This can lead to a temporary increase in blood pressure readings that doesn't necessarily reflect your long-term heart health, but rather a recent meal or a sugar spike. 16. Many seniors do not realize how their blood sugar levels can interfere with their blood pressure readings. This is a very important interaction to understand. When your blood sugar is high, your blood becomes slightly thicker and can cause your blood vessels to be less flexible in the moment. This can lead to a temporary increase in blood pressure readings that doesn't necessarily reflect your long-term heart health, but rather a recent meal or a sugar spike. Howard was 66 and lived with both high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. He noticed that if he had a sweet treat in the evening, his blood pressure reading an hour later would be much higher than usual. He was worried that the sugar was directly damaging his heart. I explained to him that high glucose levels cause the body to hold on to more water and can cause the blood vessels to constrict. Once he started taking his blood pressure readings before his meals or long after his sugar had settled, the numbers were much more stable. He learned that he couldn't accurately judge his blood pressure in the middle of a sugar spike. If you are managing blood sugar, try to time your blood pressure checks when your glucose is in its normal range. If you know your sugar is high, wait for it to come down before you trust your blood pressure numbers. Understanding this bridge between sugar and pressure can help you avoid unnecessary panic. It also shows why managing your diet is a 2-for-1 win for both systems. This supports a more holistic view of your daily health. Another helpful step is to check your equipment. 17. Using a machine that hasn't been calibrated or checked in several years is a major mistake. Like any electronic device, the sensors inside a blood pressure monitor can wear out or become less accurate over time. Most manufacturers recommend having your monitor checked every 1 to 2 years to ensure it is still giving correct information. Mary was 73 and had been using the same digital monitor for nearly a decade. She trusted it completely because it had always worked. However, she started getting readings that were consistently 160/95, even though she felt wonderful. She came into the office quite upset. I had her use her home machine, and then I immediately took her blood pressure with my professional manual cuff. Her machine was reading 20 points higher than mine. The pump in her old machine had weakened, and the sensor was no longer accurate. We got her a new validated monitor, and her numbers were back in the 130s. A good way to check your machine's accuracy is to take it with you to your next doctor's appointment. Ask the nurse if you can take your blood pressure with your home machine right after they take it with theirs. If the numbers are within 5 to 10 points of each other, your machine is likely fine. If there is a bigger gap, it may be time for a new device. This simple check can save you years of worry and incorrect data. This is easy on the joints and easy on your peace of mind. If you are finding these tips helpful, please subscribe for more simple blood pressure and blood sugar tips. 18. The mistake of being dehydrated while taking a measurement is very common among older adults. Many seniors don't feel thirst as strongly as they used to, and it is easy to go several hours without a glass of water. Dehydration can actually cause your blood pressure to fluctuate wildly. In some people, it makes the blood thicker and harder to pump, raising the pressure. In others, it causes the blood volume to drop, leading to a very low reading that can cause dizziness. Evelyn was 80 and was very careful about her salt intake, but she often forgot to drink water throughout the day. She noticed that in the late afternoon, her blood pressure would often drop to 100/60, making her feel very tired and lightheaded. She thought she needed less medication. However, after we talked about her habits, we realized she was just dehydrated by that time of day. I asked her to drink a full glass of water and wait 30 minutes before her afternoon check. Once she was properly hydrated, her blood pressure stayed in a much safer range of 120/70. Water is the oil for your circulatory system. To get a true reading of how your heart is working, your body needs to have enough fluid. Try to make it a habit to sip water throughout the day. If you notice your heart rate is higher than usual on your monitor, it might be a sign that you need more fluids. This supports steadier readings and helps your kidneys process both salt and sugar more effectively. 19. Taking your blood pressure while you are in physical pain is a mistake that will always result in an artificially high number. Whether it is a chronic backache, a sharp pain in your knee, or even a headache, pain triggers the body's stress response. This releases adrenaline, which naturally tightens the blood vessels and increases the heart rate. Frank was 81 and struggled with severe arthritis in his hips. He noticed that his blood pressure was always much higher in the morning when his joints were stiff and painful. He would see 155/90 and feel even more stressed. I explained to him that his body was reacting to the pain, not a heart problem. I suggested he take his morning pain relief, wait for it to kick in, and perhaps use a heating pad for a few minutes before taking his reading. Once Frank was comfortable and out of pain, his blood pressure readings dropped by nearly 15 points. If you are having a high pain day, it is often better to skip your reading or wait until the pain has subsided. A reading taken while you are hurting doesn't tell you how your heart is doing. It only tells you how much pain you are in. Most older adults can try this safely by simply listening to their bodies. If you have chest pain, fainting, or severe shortness of breath, do not wait. Seek emergency care. For minor aches, wait for comfort before you measure. This ensures your log reflects your true health status. 20. Many seniors make the mistake of taking their blood pressure immediately after taking their daily medications. Depending on the type of medication you are on, it can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours for a pill to reach its full effect in your bloodstream. If you measure too soon, you are seeing your unmedicated blood pressure. If you measure exactly at the peak of the medication, you might see an unnaturally low number. Rose was 69 and was very diligent about her heart pills. She would swallow her tablets and then immediately sit down to take her reading, thinking she was seeing how well the medicine worked. She was frustrated because her numbers didn't seem to move. I explained that the pill was still in her stomach, not her arteries. I suggested she take her reading first thing in the morning before her pills, and then again a few hours later. This allowed us to see her baseline and her treated numbers. This gave us a much better understanding of how the medication was actually performing throughout the day. Ask your doctor when the best time to measure is in relation to your specific prescriptions. Usually, doctors want to see what your blood pressure is at its worst, which is right before your next dose, as well as how well the medicine is working. Knowing these 2 points is much more helpful than a random reading right after swallowing a pill. This creates a clear map of how your body uses the medication. 21. Ignoring the morning rise is a mistake that causes many people to panic. It is a natural biological process for blood pressure and blood sugar to rise slightly just before you wake up. This is your body's way of preparing you for the day's activities. If you see a slightly higher number at 7 a.m. than you do at 7 p.m., it may just be your natural rhythm. Arthur, whom we mentioned earlier, was very distressed by his morning numbers. He felt they should be the lowest because he had been sleeping. When he saw 140/85 in the morning but 122/75 in the evening, he thought he was at risk for a stroke during the night. I explained the concept of the morning surge. Once he understood that this was a normal part of human biology, his anxiety vanished. He started looking for the average of his morning and evening numbers rather than focusing on the morning peak. Don't be alarmed by small differences between morning and evening readings. What matters most is the long-term average and how you feel. If your morning numbers are extremely high, like over 160, that is worth a discussion with your doctor. But for most, a small morning rise is just the body turning on the engine for the day. This supports a much calmer approach to your daily health checks. 22. The final mistake we will cover is not being consistent with your posture over the long term. If you sit in a chair one day and on the sofa the next, your heart has to work differently to move blood against gravity in those different positions. This makes your log look like a mountain range instead of a steady line. Patricia was 67 and liked variety. She would take her blood pressure at her desk, then the next day in her lounge chair, and the day after that while propped up in bed. Her numbers were so inconsistent that her doctor couldn't tell if her medication was working. I asked her to choose one official blood pressure chair in her house, a sturdy one with a back and a nearby table at the right height. Once Patricia committed to using that same chair every single day, the noise in her data disappeared. We finally saw that her blood pressure was actually very stable. Pick one spot in your home that meets all the criteria: a firm chair, a table at heart height, and a quiet environment. Make this your health corner. By keeping your environment and your posture the same every day, you remove all the variables except for what is actually happening inside your heart and vessels. This is the most professional and accurate way to manage your health at home. In conclusion, measuring your blood pressure is one of the best things you can do for your future. It gives you and your doctor the information needed to prevent strokes, protect your kidneys, and keep your heart strong. By avoiding these 22 mistakes, from wearing thick clothes to being dehydrated, you are taking control of your health with precision and care. Always remember to stay patient with yourself. One high reading is not a disaster. It is just a single data point. It is the trend over weeks and months that truly tells the story of your well-being. If you know someone over 50 who could benefit from this, share this video and subscribe for more simple blood pressure and blood sugar tips. I'm Dr. Ben Harris, and I'll see you in the next video.